Okay, some of the other water-soluble vitamins are sort of linked together. Those are thiamine, riboflavin, and niacin. These are all essential for metabolism of those macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fat. They function as a part of coenzymes, which are helpers needed to extract the energy from the foods that you eat. Thiamine, one of the sources of thiamine is probably the best source is lean pork. 3 ounces is 0.53 milligrams, but it's also provided by many food groups. Riboflavin is found primarily in milk and dairy products and also organ meat, such as liver. 3 ounces of cooked beef liver is 2.4 milligrams, and a cup of milk is 0.45 milligrams. The thing about organ meats, it does contain the riboflavin, which is a really good thing, but when I look at organ meats, I'm weighing it against the fact that it does have a lot of cholesterol. And when you think about what the liver does in terms of filtering toxic things from your body, we generally don't promote a lot of organ meats. Would be something that you would have occasionally. Now, when it comes to niacin, most protein foods contain niacin. Beef liver, once again, has 14.7 milligrams. Salmon has 8.5. An ounce of peanuts, 3.4. And a tablespoon of peanut butter, 2.1. So there's your thiamine, riboflavin, and niacin. Whole and refined grains are also good sources of those nutrients. Okay, what about vitamin B6? B6 is also known as pyridoxine, pyridoxal, and pyridoxamine. It functions as a coenzyme, a helper, especially important to protein metabolism. It helps make non-essential amino acids. It helps to make hemoglobin and red blood cells. And it's important for nervous system and immune system. And it's really high in animal proteins. So anything like, meat, chicken, seafood are going to have a lot of your vitamin B6. Again, when we're talking about all these different specific vitamins, it's important to realize, where they come from, where you're getting them from your diet. But from the perspective of a culinary professional, again, it's important to always consider variety and balance. And then you're covered with your nutrients. What about folate and vitamin B12? They both, again, function as a coenzyme that are needed to make new cells. Folate is critical early in pregnancy to prevent birth defects. So that's the main concern that I want you to remember, which I think is widely recognized in the community. Folate, folic acid, and folacin are slightly different chemical forms with equivalent vitamin activity. B12, on the other hand, is also needed to maintain the protective cover around each nerve fiber so that nerves work properly. Talk about folate for a minute. Pregnant women are at risk for folate deficiency, which may cause neural tube defects that are actually malformed brain and or spine during the first few months of pregnancy. So that's why it's critical for a woman who is even thinking about becoming pregnant to really clean up the diet and also consider taking a prenatal vitamin supplement, which is higher in folate. But it's also important, like I mentioned before, to get it from food. So some of your major sources of folate are your green leafy vegetables, your legumes, fortified breads, and cereals. Just to give you a few examples, a cup of ready-to-eat cereal that's fortified is going to have, 200 milligrams of, 200 micrograms of folate. A half a cup of lentils has 179. A half a cup of enriched rice has about 119. So folate is now added to enriched grain products as a public health measure to reduce birth defects. Because it's lost in cooking, fresh and lightly prepared foods are always good sources. What about B12? We hear a lot about B12. It could be a problem for people who are following a vegan diet because B12, another word for B12 is cobalamin. It's actually found only in foods of animal origins. So when you have population groups that are eliminating animal foods, there can be a potential problem for B12. So it's very important to focus on getting it from food sources, other food sources besides animal origin. B12 is important because it assists in building new cells, all new cells, including bone, red blood cells, and it's also really essential for helping to break down the protein, carbon, fat for energy. It's also needed to protect nerve fibers for normal functioning of the nervous system. So when we're dealing with the elderly, many times they have not enough intrinsic factor in their gut to even utilize the B12 that's actually being eaten. And that's why many times the elderly are placed on B12 supplements or also B12 shots. So again, vegans really need to be concerned about getting foods in their diet that are actually higher in vitamin B12. And because animal products are very high in B12 and they're not eating them, they have to be concerned about eating foods that are fortified with B12, such as soy products, cold cereals, tofu, and meat substitutes, such as, alternative sausage and alternative chicken strips. Strict vegans may also need to really supplement B12 and also, like I mentioned, the elderly. B12 deficiency can cause mental confusion, nervous system problems, and even paralysis. There's a really good summary of all the vitamins, their functions, and all their sources that are discussed and listed on page 181 and 182 of your textbook. That might be a really good thing to study before your quiz and your midterm exam. Okay, that concludes the vitamin chapter, which is not as complicated, I think, as a lot of people might think. It's very important to consider using food as your main source. But I want to cover a little bit about dietary supplements that's in this chapter because a lot of people rely on that. A lot of people rely on popping a pill as opposed to worrying about getting the right food in their diet. And we really should be thinking the other way around. It's so much more important to get the food, eat your nutrients from food because of the synergy that happens between the nutrients, and even more, the importance of you're getting some compounds in food that we may not even know about. When you're popping a pill, that's all you're getting is that nutrient. A really good resource from the Office of Dietary Supplements of the National Institutes of Health is http://ods.od.nih.gov. There's some really good resources there. Surveys show that about half of the U.S. population uses dietary supplements such as multivitamins and also mineral pills. And that's reflected in the annual sales of dietary supplements. They've continued to grow, and obviously we're very aware that new products are developed every year that probably are not necessary if people would eat a proper diet. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, does not approve dietary supplements for safety and effectiveness before they're sold. And that's a major point that I want you to remember. So many, and that is so many of the vitamin and mineral manufacturers are just fly by night. And because there's no watchdog, that's the reason there's so many different ones being sold. Claims that taking a supplement will provide certain health benefits have always been controversial. It's freedom of speech to say whatever you want on a flyer. Manufacturers often rely on these claims to sell their products. So what's on the label has to be accurate, but because there's not really a method of approval, manufacturers many times sell products and use testimonials to claim that their products are better or good. But I want you as culinary professionals to realize that dietary supplements are not replacements for conventional food. As a registered dietitian, I would always recommend food first, and that's my recommendation to you because when you're eating foods, you're getting a variety of nutrients and minerals and also dietary factors that may not be already found in food. And you're also getting things like phytochemicals and fiber that you wouldn't get from a supplement. So, food first is really the answer to the question. So, what are we looking at? Just like a food fact label, we have a supplement fact label. It's easy to spot a supplement because manufacturers by law must include the word dietary supplement, as you can see in the diagram on the product label. Manufacturers must also include a list of ingredients along with the supplement fact panel. Now, that doesn't mean that we understand or the average consumer understands what those ingredients are, because many times there's bogus ingredients that don't really mean anything or affect anything in the body, but they're included, and that's what makes one supplement different from another. Unlike prescription and over the counter drugs that have to be proven safe and effective for their intended use before they're approved by FDA, the FDA does not approve dietary supplements for safety and efficacy before they are sold. This is such an important statement that I want you to embrace and really understand the reason that we promote food first, because many of the supplements are really not, that are on the marketplace are not even really safe or effective, and we're spending an awful lot of money on them. So, what are some tips for picking a supplement? Dietary supplements are not replacements for the conventional diet. Remember food first because foods provide a variety of vitamins and minerals that aren't necessarily found in vitamins and mineral supplements. So, to protect yourself, do the following. Look for USP verified on the label or an NSF seal. Avoid substances that are not known nutrients. And many times the average consumer might not even know that unless they looked it up in the in a good, very good resource. You want to always, if you're wanting a vitamin or mineral, it's important to buy a multivitamin mineral supplement, just one, that supplies 100% of the RDA. Because if you take a cocktail of vitamins and minerals, you're not getting them in a balanced form. When they're in a multivitamin form and they supply 100% of the RDA, that's what you need and that's what you're getting. So if people end up taking excessive amounts of those fat-soluble vitamins, it's stored in your fat, it's stored in your liver. If it's excessive amounts of vitamin C, like 2,000 milligrams when you only need 60, a lot of that's being flushed out. So there's no reason to take or find or buy a vitamin mineral supplement that's more than 100% of the RDA. You always want to purchase it from a national known manufacturer so that there is some integrity in the company as opposed to a fly-by-night startup. You also want to be sure that your physician is aware of what you're taking. And for another really good resource, hopefully you can consult with your pharmacist who understand the possible interactions with vitamins, minerals, and possibly medications that you're on. Many times, vitamin and mineral companies, supplement companies, use the word natural. Well, just because it states that it's natural doesn't mean that it's safe. Natural is a health halo word that manufacturers use to kind of entice people into their products. You want to avoid any product that claims to work like a prescription drug, that advertises through mass emails, that's marketed in other languages, that promises weight loss, bodybuilding, enhanced sexual performance. All of these things are just many times money-making scams. Now, there are people that need supplementation. Like I mentioned in the other slide, people that are smokers may need extra vitamin C. Women who are pregnant need extra folate. So how do we know if what we have in our cabinet right now is safe and effective? There's a really good website called consumerlab.com. consumerlab.com. Check that website to check the safety and efficacy of the current supplements that you have. It's a very good resource. I hope that helps in identifying just how important a real food diet is, as opposed to eating a junk diet and trying to make up for it with a supplement. There's a lot of good information in the book and a lot of good resources on the internet if you look at if you're looking at the right resources. The rest of this chapter is very important, and I really want you to spend some time on your own studying pages 172 to 180, because it is very difficult for people to get their fruits and vegetables in. So the culinary focus in this chapter can help you and also, your constituents to really use it in ways that are beneficial. Because fruits and vegetables are really lacking in the diet. And when you think of where most of your vitamins are coming from, it is fruits and veggies. It's that produce. It's that food group that is so important. Now, the one point I want to make here is that all forms matter. So whether it's fresh fruit, frozen fruit and vegetables, canned, or juice, those are all important, and those are all very good sources. Now, when we think about canned goods, whether it's a canned vegetable or a canned juice like V8, the only difference between eating that and eating it fresh is because it's highly processed, it's going to have more sodium. So in the case of a vegetable, you might want to drain it. Now, what about fruit? Fruit, when it's canned, is either packed in water, packed in its own juice, or packed in syrup. So obviously, if you're concerned about the caloric content of the meal, you would choose packed in water because you're not getting excessive, unnecessary calories. If it's packed in its own juice and you serve the juice, you have to realize that that's an extra serving of fruit. If it's packed in heavy syrup, then you know it's just empty calories. It's just excessive calories from sugar. So, all forms matter: fresh, frozen, canned, juice. And you can use all of those in many different ways to include more vitamins and minerals in the diet. The other important thing about fruits and vegetables is they contribute a number of other nutrients that are underconsumed, like dietary fiber. When you consume them, they're associated with a risk of lowering heart disease and also stroke and also cancer. And when you have a diet that's high in carbohydrates or fruits and vegetables that aren't prepared with a lot of extra fat and sugar, you're getting, a lot lower calorie content than you are from other food groups. So think color, think colors of the rainbow. And that's how we talk to younger people, younger children, about the importance of a healthy diet. If you look at your plate and you see a lot of color, the color of the rainbow, you're getting a whole lot more nutrients. As I mentioned before, it's very important to store them properly, and to also, understand the importance of how to prepare them so that you're not destroying nutrients. You want to keep most of your fruits and vegetables cold, except for things like bananas, whole citrus, hard rind or winter squash, eggplant, potatoes, sweet potatoes, onions, avocados, melons, stone fruit, tomatoes. A lot of these are better ripened at room temperature. Now, if you want to slow the ripening, many times you can put some of those in the refrigerator. So, what about the walk in refrigerator? What about how to store food? Where to place fresh produce in the walk-in is really important. And this slide shows which produce is better near the door, which is a warmer location because of the door opening and shutting, and by the back wall, which is cooler. Location of fruits and vegetables in the refrigerator is also important because most fruits produce ethylene gas. Ethylene gas causes most fruits and vegetables and a few non-ethylene producing fruits, such as strawberries, to ripen and obviously deteriorate more quickly and develop undesirable qualities. So it's important to understand where to store these, wonderful treasures. Like I mentioned, cooking methods are really important. When you're doing very light cooking like blanching, obviously there's no leaching of the nutrients in the water. When you're doing any kind of stewing or making a soup, those nutrients might be leached out, but you're consuming those in the water. Some of the nutrients we talked about are destroyed in cooking, so you might want to have a variety of different kinds of preparation methods when it comes to vitamin C foods. You want to monitor your texture and your flavor when you're cooking. Things like your cruciferous vegetables, your cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, change texture, flavor, color when they're overcooked. So you want to be sure that you don't overcook some of those vegetables and just cook them until they're tender crisp, like in the form of roasting. So there's a lot to consider when you're talking about produce. Another thing is avoid peeling whenever possible. Like if you're making a salad and you're using cucumber or a lot of different fruits or vegetables, you don't want to peel them, and eating the peel is providing a lot of extra nutrients that are on the outside of the product and also provide that extra fiber. So here we have a nice little boat of, wonderful fruit that looks very appealing. And that is the most important thing to consider after you've put a lot of effort into the preparation of food, is how you present it, because we eat with our eyes. Fruits are a natural in salads. Roasted fruits with shallots can be a base to use with protein foods. I always recommend using fruit as a natural for dessert. You can make a cobbler or a crisp with an oatmeal crumble topping, and then you're having that added benefit of the whole grain. Berries are just wonderful in terms of being such a vibrant color and being just full of nutrition and antioxidants, and take advantage of those kinds of things seasonally. And that's what I always encourage, is to purchase and utilize foods that are in season so that you're getting the best quality at the time. If you want to use those throughout the year, it's best to freeze some of the vegetables when they're in season, and also a better purchasing price. Vegetables, you can use that to fill your plate. Vegetables are a wonderful source of vitamins, minerals, and also fiber. And when you look at the My Plate, we always encourage 1/4 of the plate as protein and 3/4 of the plate as color. And when you're loading a plate up with a lot of vegetables, it provides a lot of color, visual appeal, nutrients, fiber, with very few calories. So be mindful of using, um, wonderful vegetables that are in season, and always use a variety. There's a lot of different techniques of, adding different fruits and vegetables. Be creative, substituting cantaloupe for the orange in this salad, varying the types of nuts. There's just a lot of ways to add visual appeal, and something like that would be so few calories, but yet just so full of nutrition. So when we're talking about healthy and balanced eating and cooking and tips for the culinary professional, a little bit goes a long way, or a lot is wonderful on your plate to get people to think they're getting a lot of food and not as many calories. Fermentation is a method of changing the appearance of a fruit and vegetable. It's when yeast or bacteria convert sugar to the acids in fruits and vegetables, and almost any one of them can be fermented. And they really are good for intensifying flavor. It really helps to keep the veggie and fruit fresher longer, and it's really good for gut health. So, in summary, your body only needs very small amounts of vitamins, but the roles they play in the body are enormously important. Vitamins, remember, have no calories, but rather enable your body to use protein, carbohydrate, and fat for energy. Also, keep in mind that while providing a wide variety of foods makes vitamins available, food storage and cooking techniques affect the final composition of any food served. Thank you, and that's the end of our vitamin chapter for today.